Hello and welcome everyone to what we call the Artist Spotlight Stories, sponsored by the Center of Armenian Studies at the University of Michigan. My name is Melanie Tanilian and I'm the director of the center, and the Artist Spotlight Stories series was inaugurated in 2020 with the intention of giving Armenian artists, filmmakers in particular, a platform to showcase their work as cinemas, of course, and exhibition halls closed their doors. And we are continuing this series, and it's recorded and will be, of course, placed onto our website later. But it's really a platform to showcase the work of young and specifically Armenian artists. And we're continuing this series as, of course, we're still living with the pandemic at this particular moment in time. But we found that engaging with local and international artists contributes greatly to the center's educational mission, which promises not only to engage interdisciplinary, but also strives to critically consider concerns that lie at the nexus of the Armenian experience. And for that, and of course, art, it is art really that cuts to the heart, unfiltered and uninhibited. For our audience, you can interject at any moment in time. You can put your questions into the Q&A, and I'll gladly pass those on to Diana. It's my really great pleasure today to introduce Diana Kardumyan, who is joining us from Armenia. And Diana was born in Nagorno-Karabakh and moved to Armenia at a very young age with her parents during the wars in the 1990s. And she has then studied film directing at Yerevan State University and graduated from the Yerevan State Institute of Theater and Cinematography as one of the first students of that program, I believe. And she has presented her short films around the globe, and in particular has presented at the Zubrovka International Film Festival, the Moscow International Film Festival, and has served, I think, on many, many juries for international film festivals, in particular, of course, the Golden Apricot Film Festival, where also her films have been shown. And Diana is considered one of Armenia's leading young directors, and beyond the films that you were able to watch, she has directed a number of short films that have been widely praised. One among them is Autumn Sun from 2006, which has been described beautifully as a poetic ode to youth and the ambiguous nature of desire, which I thought was really nice. There's also the film Galata from 2011, which was filmed in Istanbul as part of the Armenia-Turkey film platform, which I think is an interesting project. And you, as our audience, had the opportunity to watch two of her short films for today, Dialogue and Tombe. Dialogue was done in 2011, and Tombe is, I think, the newest film. I think there's one more afterwards.
The last one.
The last one. And that was in 2018. And I hope you all had a chance to view the films, but you can also still do so. Naira might be able to put those links into the chat. And I would ask Diana to just start us off by saying a few words about the films, and you please contribute your questions as we're moving along. Welcome, Diana, to our small gathering here. Oops.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for very nice. And before starting, I just want to say thank you to Naira for this wonderful opportunity to be part of your program and somehow to present Armenian movies abroad. So this is really, really touching, and thank you very much. And coming back to these two short films, actually I had an idea of making a trilogy about Yerevan. Yerevan is capital of Armenia. And we are three short films. I wanted to create an image of Yerevan's nightlife and story should have been different and depict different aspects of Yerevan night. So I just wanted to, you know, Yerevan isn't big city, but it's very, very different. When you are in the city center, it's very chic, very modern, sometimes very with very ugly new buildings. But when you are on the outskirts of the Yerevan, it's really, really different, because most of the there used to be abandoned factories during Soviet era. So most of that the factories and places are abandoned, and someone even cannot recognize the Yerevan because it's really, really different. So my idea was to create the 3 short films and to try to depict all these differences. So this was the main idea of making this trilogy. But after making 2 short films, I give up and didn't want to continue this path, because I couldn't find power inside of me to repeat this way of to repeat the way of these previous films, because before the revolution, it was really very hard to find funding for especially short films, because most of people say, why I should you give money? Because I don't earn anything from that. This sounds very maybe normal, but somehow we should make these films just for our professional maybe career and to make etc. So first I started with dialogues, and for me dialogues was kind of I wanted to try to write down the dialogues, how to write the dialogues. It was quite a big challenge for me. I mean, just dialogues, not the title of the film, just how to write down these dialogues between people and how it should be interesting, catching. So I just started like an exercise from day to day, just write down some dialogues. And at the end, I had this list of nearly 10 pages of dialogues. So I said that, okay, it looks like a theatrical piece or play, theatrical play. Yeah. So I later on just started to put some situations, and said this kind it appeared, and later on I just started to make it. But when I started to make Tombe, the situation was totally different. I don't live in Yerevan. I live in a small city called Ashtarak, which is very near to the Yerevan. But every time when I'm coming home, I have to catch some taxi. So, and during these journeys, night journeys, let's say, taxi drivers usually like to tell different stories. I don't know, etc., etc. So once I heard the story from a taxi driver who said that he met a woman, aged prostitute, and she was more than 50 years, and she had sex with 4 guys at once. This was very shocking for me. And long time this story was in my head, and I wanted just somehow to depict this story and tell that situations that really happening around us, but we are too busy to just to see what is going around. So at that time I asked a professional writer just to join me, and we started to work on this story. Yeah. Before I made lots of researches just to know how prostitutes are behaving, how they are talking to their clients, etc., etc. And I found out that they are really okay with their let's say profession, because it's maybe easy way to earn money. I don't want to hurt someone, but at sometimes it looks like that. So during our conversations with my co-writer, Bahram Martirosyan, who is here a famous novelist, so he said that you shouldn't tell about a prostitute, you should tell about a woman who somehow met a prostitute. and continuous the prostitute story. So that's how we changed this story, and it after we started just making this film, I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like you've gone through these two different journeys quite differently, because on the one hand, of course, directing is very different from writing a dialogue, right? And directing a film is different from screenwriting, and so the craft that goes into the kind of work that you do is very, very different. And the two films are also very, very different in their tone and in what they are trying to portray. But the center, of course, is the city of Yerevan, and which of course, you know, the idea that you're showing us a different story of a city that is looked upon by tourists in a particular kind of way, and even by the people who probably live in it, and showing us the aspects of it that we don't usually see, which I thought I appreciated very much. Yeah, thank you. I have a few.
Maybe.
Go ahead.
Okay, can I add something?
Of course, yeah. Please.
Okay. Actually, yes, it was one of my goals to make totally different films, stylistically and concerning camera movement, etc., etc. But I should say that on both films we work with the same artistic and technical team, crew, and to me it was not only for me, but just the whole for the whole team to make different films, especially for the director of photography, because when we're dialogues were ready, everybody says that, oh, this is something different. Yerevan doesn't like this way, the way you depict in your film. But when I made the Tombe, everybody says that, yeah, this is Yerevan, and this is very familiar to everyone. So this was very interesting for me, just to add some little notes.
Yeah, totally. An unexpected response, perhaps for some people. I want to ask a few questions about how you came to filmmaking and then returned to the films, if that's okay. So one of the things that, you know, when I was sort of working through sort of creating a group and a list of our directors, Armenian filmmakers in particular, your name kept coming up, and as one of the people who is doing really interesting work and new work in Armenia. I want to ask you a little bit, what inspired you to actually study film? Where did this come from, this desire to view the world through the camera?
Actually, I became a film director just accidentally. Before, I just wanted to be a journalist. Maybe to have a chance to interview famous people, because I was obsessed with that. And I just learned that in the cinema, in my institute, there is a new section, and it is dedicated to the cinema. So I decided, why not? Let's just try, and maybe something will happen. So I just tried, and from the first attempt, I just was a student of their cinema. But yeah, maybe you find out me via Google. I don't know, but you said that I'm a kind of one of the young directors, but I don't think that I'm a young director, because after me, there are lots of really young directors. Maybe some 50 years ago, I was a young director too, but right now I'm 40, and I think that I'm not a young director. I'm just a person who tries just to keep the way and going on. Yeah, and the only thing that for that I'm really sorry that during all this time I couldn't use the all my opportunity, all my creative opportunity to make more films, maybe even full-length films. This is very sad to me because like 10 years I'm trying to make my first full-length film, and actually I just give up with that idea, and I put that script just beside me, and now I'm just starting to work on another idea because really I just cannot find money. Even many of people saying that you're making beautiful films, etc., etc. But when it comes to real cooperation and etc., sometimes you cannot find money in Armenia. Plus, you have to anyway make co-productions. You cannot work without co-productions. And when it comes to co-production, it's also always a problem. And plus, here in Armenia, for all the industry, we have less than $1 million. And this industry includes animation, documentary, shorts, full-length films. Can you imagine how many directors are here? And every year, the state funding is less than 1 million. And it's very hard just to go through it, you know.
So the competition is also perhaps really large. And when I think when I'm saying you are one of the young directors, I don't I'm in quotation marks, right? Because I think what you represent is a new generation, and in particular, I think a female generation of filmmakers, right? As the older generation of Armenian filmmakers was very much male dominated, I would say. And I think that's why the label, I think, kind of sticks in a way that you represent a new generation, I think, of filmmakers.
Yes, in that terms, I'm totally agree with you, because you touched the theme that there are female and male film directors, and let's say during the Soviet period, there wasn't Armenian female filmmakers, and mostly there were only male filmmakers, and the main topic of their films was the male, their masculineness, etc., etc., and nobody didn't pay attention to the female problems, let's say. And we don't have during that period a film in which the main character is woman. In that films at that period, mostly women characters are secondary and even far away, because on the first there were only men characters, and even there is a joke I cannot translate, but I'll try. Some of the film characters during the Soviet Union films says, when I am here, it means that my wife is next to me. So wife is some kind of accessoire which is attached to his husband. So she can't be, let's say, beside the husband. And really female characters appeared in Armenian cinema starting from 2000s, when appeared lots of Armenian young, at that time, young film directors, women film directors, and most of them studied abroad, and they bring their knowledge, their maybe feministic views to this situation. And it's really something changed after that, and even now the female directors are they are trying to represent more female characters via their cinema.
So I don't know where exactly I read this, but you were talking in that interview about sort of the early period when you were studying at Yerevan State, and this kind of, I think, brings us back, sort of connects to the story of what is the inspiration for your films. You noted in that interview that foreign films were not available, and that your teachers had to simply describe some of these sort of very influential films, and I'm wondering, are there particular Armenian filmmakers and directors that served as an inspiration, or foreign filmmakers that served as your inspiration, even though it was difficult to view or see?
Yeah, when we started, really at that time was really hard just to watch that famous in the films, and mostly we just theoretically learned about these films, let's say about Citizen Kane, which is very familiar to you. So we knew lots of about the camera angles, how the film structure, how camera moves, what kind of innovations they did, all of these kind of things. I like to read, and I read all this information, and many years, let's say 3-4 years after all this stuff, when I saw this Citizen Kane, I was a little bit upset because I knew more that it was in that film, so lots of theory was, and it happened mostly every time when I watch famous films about what about I read before. Yeah. So, but later on I said that no, you have to return on the rewatch and just okay. So, and actually I have lots of international film directors who inspire me. But before coming to them, I should mention one person who is Armenian filmmaker, and he is my all-time inspiration. His name is Fruze Dovlatyan, and he's really famous, not in Armenia and while Soviet era, and even his film was in competition in Cannes Film Festival. This is something unique for us, really. So his film, which I really adore, is Hello, It's Me. The title of the film is Hello, It's Me. But I'm afraid that no one can find this film online with English subtitles, and this is really a big problem, for not only for me, for us. And this situation a little bit can describe how the situation, real situation here is in Armenia, and how we and our attitude to our heritage and our just modern, what we have. So, and his next film, which I really also love, its name is Chronic of Yerevan Days. Okay. And some people say that they can say similarity with dialogues on this film. And I think it's true because I used some phrases and dialogue pieces from that film. I just to bring it to my film because I like it very much. And to me, it was kind of just kind of homage. And I wanted to show that this generation, that connection between different generations is still alive. And to me, this director is like his generation of my grandfathers, not fathers. So I have a connection to my grandfather's generation, but I have no connection to my father's generation. I mean directors, not. So, so this is my favorite film director, Armenian film director, Fruze Dovlatyan, but I adore François Truffaut from France, New Way. But I also very like Sidney Lumet and Martin Scorsese. Okay, yeah. And John Cassavetes or Cassavetes, I don't know how to pronounce in correct way. Cassavetes or Cassavetes, I don't know. So why I mentioned these two, especially Lumet and Scorsese, to me, there are real professionals. For example, in art house films, directors always doing the same film in different, let's say, forms, but the main topic doesn't change at all, to me. But in their films, if you can just remember what kind of films they made, their films are really different from each other. And this is really inspires me, because I want to be person who can handle every film, every situation, and to make differently. It's very, very important to me. That's how they are very important to me. And there is a brilliant book of Sidney Lumet, Making Films, if I'm not mistaken. And it is one of my favorite cinema books in general.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
great book.
Thank you. So we have a few questions coming in from our audience. One of them is that in both films, both Dialogue and Tombe, and this is a question I was going to get to at some point, but the theme, of course, revolves around gender, right? And maybe you can talk a little bit about the gender aspect, or the idea of how women enter into your films. But Matthew is asking, to what extent class is important for you to depict? What role did class play for you when you were thinking about these films? Class as in terms of
he was asking
differences in sort of social hierarchies in a way.
Okay, if I'm right, so he is actually in both films the social classes are different for each woman. Yeah. In this that the question in this direction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's very interesting question to me, because when I started making these two films and we started to talk with my DOP how depict this situation and to show that they are from different social layers.
Yeah.
So we made this kind of decision. For Tombe, we chose narrow angle lenses. And for not for Tombe, for Dialogues. And for Tombe, we chose wide angle lenses. Why? When you are using wide angles, everything in the frame is on focus. So yeah. I wanted for Tombe's character to show how she is connected to her environment and how environment impacts at her. So, okay, for the dialogues, as my character was, let's say, middle class, she represents kind of middle class Armenian. So I didn't want to show her very connected to her environment. So that's why we use the narrow angle, which is blurred the second. How is blurred your second line?
Exactly.
So the same, because to me was when you are a kind of representative of the middle class, you don't have so much problems just to show up, to show that when something is broken, it's somehow changes things. But when you are a representative of middle age, so you can just go to have conversation without thinking about, let's say, earning, kids, etc. So via this technical method, we just wanted to show the differences of their different levels.
Yeah, that's so interesting how you accomplish that, because I mean, as looking on from the outside, the class differences become very, very clear, right, in these two films. But that the way that you're explaining how you actually did it with the camera and with your technology, I didn't even think about it, right? Because it takes you right into these spaces in these very different ways. On the one hand, you have this very intimate kind of dialogue that's outside of any kind of
Yeah,
context, right? I mean, there's no context in dialogue.
yeah, yeah.
The focus is really on these two people.
True
And,
people, yeah.
yeah, and whereas in Tombe, it's all about the context, right? It's all about the
Yes.
restaurant, and it's all about her washing dishes and her every day as she's listening to the radio and so on. This is really super interesting how you just explained that.
Yes, and this is just a technical moment, but it all helps to solve the creative things that you want to show, because you don't have any other. You have camera, lenses, light, and actors, but you have always be so you have to always solve this kind of situation. So even in Sydney Lumet's films, you can find this kind of lots of examples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a sort of, not an expert on filmmaking, this is super interesting to me. So Matthew is also asking, you mentioned that in Soviet era filmmaking and film themes were dominated by men, and something that you wanted to help change. And you also said you wanted to depict Yerevan's nightlife. To what extent did you see nightlife as an advantageous medium or a good space for depicting this sort of gendered struggle? Why did you think of nighttime, I guess, nighttime?
Okay, so this is also very interesting, because in dialogues, when it's night, it's very sensual. It's very sensual night. It's a kind of, let's say, in the kind of in the mood of love, or something like this. But there is a night also in the for the characters of dialogues. Night is kind of it's a kind of blanket which covers there and hides from the others' view or glances. But for the Kara situation from the Tombe, it's night is kind of thing that it is full of danger, and it is the same night, but you cannot you never know what will happen to you. It is the same Yerevan, the same night, but as I mentioned before, that the technical aspects were different. So this shows that how the same night can be different in these two films. And for Nara, for Kara from Tombe, night is very scary, but for Dialogue's character, the female character, it's kind of blanket just to hide her and her love story from others. So
yeah. And what is your relationship to the actress that is in these films?
Yeah, it is the same actress. Have you noticed that? Yeah, and do you think that she's different or not? It's really interesting for me, because here in Armenia, everybody says that she doesn't changes at all. She's the same, but to me, it's really different. What do you think? Is she different or not? You're just personal.
I didn't initially notice. And that because for me she was a very different character, and I also didn't watch the films one after the other. I watched Dialogue first, and then a few days later I watched Tombe, and so it didn't connect that she actually was the same. I sort of realized that she was the same was when I saw the images, the stills of both the films next to each other. I was like, oh, it's the same actress. I mean, but that also, shows my ignorance. I obviously should have checked who she was, but in that sense, I felt that she was very different in many ways. Maybe people who watched it one after the other feel differently about it because sort of her image is fresh and
this is really interesting because everybody, as you know, Armenia is a small country.
Yeah, but they probably also know her, right?
Everybody know each other, and everybody has their opinions regarding this actress, actor, etc., etc. But when I'm showing this film, let's say Tombe or Dialogues Abroad, people really like how she acts, and they really say that she's different. But here in Armenia, I don't know why, but people doesn't see any differences, and this is very sad to me. But I like her very much, and actually I'm working on a new new full-length film project, and I'm thinking that she's gonna be the main character. Because she is super talented to me, and she's also a leading actress in a theater, and also a theater director, also director of the theater. So she's quite famous here in Armenia.
Yeah.
And every time when I'm going to the theater and watching her game, her play, her plays, she has a really enormous talent. But every time in films, I can use only one color from her talent, let's say. But during theatrical plays, she's really like a fountain, or I don't know how to say.
Yeah, like a fountain, yeah.
Yeah,
so she actually like has become your muse in a way.
No, maybe because I like, because her appearance is very different. Her appearance or no?
Appearance, yeah.
Her face, maybe, okay, let's say. Her face is very different from Armenian traditional faces, let's say. She doesn't look like a true Armenian, let's say, because we are mostly a little bit dark skinned, etc., etc. And from time to time, she looks for me like an alien, because her face is a little bit strange, and to be honest, it's very hard to shoot her face, because when she turns this way, everything changes, proportions of the face. So every time we have with DOP, we have to think on how to depict her and how to shoot her face, just to be in the shape and to not to ruin the proportions of her face.
Yeah.
So she's interesting, and I don't know is she my muse, but yeah, when I want to make another film, I am going to shoot her again.
Good. So we have another question which goes back, I think, to something that is a tough go for you. But this is from Damiab Call Verma, who says, how do you pursue filmmaking when there's so little funding? Do you have more commercial projects that you do? Or was the lack of funding, and by extension, I'm guessing less income, a major problem? How do you come to terms with it? And then the end is that, of course, you are a great inspiration for female filmmakers in Armenia. And I just want to add, there was a sort of exuberance, I think, among you filmmakers after, sort of immediately after the revolution, thinking that maybe there was a moment of opening for the arts and a moment of perhaps more support. How does it play out now? And I know you've already said that funding is a serious issue, but how do you come to terms?
Okay, so can I clarify something? So the first part was how I'm surviving as an artist.
Yes, I think that's
the second
the
part.
question.
Okay, and the second part was dedicated to the revolution.
Right.
So actually, as I said and mentioned before, here in Armenia, we have only one state funding, our state fund for financing. So you can once or two times in a year apply for the project, and no one knows how it will go. So, and usually, honestly, I haven't earned any money by making my films, and I made more than 10 short films. So every time when I'm making a film and they're giving me money and they're saying, okay, you will have film instead of your salary. So this is the big benefit of.
Yeah.
So, and this happens every time. Now situation a little bit has changed in Armenia because we have also law, cinema law, so something is changed. The situation, how they are accepting the projects, everything has changed, but I don't think that this really works because to me, film industry depends on money. So if you have, before the revolution, we had more state funding than now. I don't know what happened.
Right. Yeah.
So this is very funny because when this revolution happened, everybody was incredibly happy. I can say that I was happy because at that time I just trying to have baby, and so my thoughts were in different directions. So I wasn't involved at all. But maybe somewhere deep in my I don't know, inside me, I was also thinking that finally something will be changed because at that time in 2017 and 2018, I was actively involved in making a cinema law. So I really worked hard with group of the people, and at that time we really were involved, and I somehow believed that something will change. Uh, with this new system, I haven't worked, honestly. I don't know how it works, but I know that, let's say, now when young man comes to them, he can, for short film, let's say, he can receive maximum $20,000. And this is really big money for Armenians because for Tombe, I received 2 millions, which means nearly $4,000.
Okay.
And so you can just compare the situation, and plus the taxes, etc., and you are having nearly $3,000 and $5,000. It's very low, but we have other sources, small sources. So besides, we don't have any other funds just to survive, just to make, let's say, script development. Now they have a kind of, you can just apply for script development, etc. You can receive some small amount of money, but just to survive with this money, it's nonsense. Not only for me, for all of Armenian filmmakers. And for example, I'm making advertisement. So from time to time, I'm making this advertising videos. So it's it's quite okay. It helps from the time to survive, or maybe I'm having a kind of lectures, let's say, not. But for 3 days, for 10 days, I don't know. It happens different. So they are paying for that, but mostly my husband is supporting me. That's the story.
I have a question. I mean, it seems like it's really incredibly difficult for people in Armenia to get the kind of funding.
Yeah.
Perhaps there's a way that maybe there's outside help somewhere as well that we can think of in this context. But I'm also wondering a little bit about your film Galata. I haven't seen it, but you went to Istanbul to make this, and I'm wondering what was this. If you can tell us a little bit about the Armenian-Turkish film platform that you were part of in making that film.
Yeah, before 2020. There was a kind of, or let's say, golden apricot wanted to create kind of cultural bridges between our neighbors. So one of their projects was Armenian Turkey Turkish cinema platform, and they launched it in 2008, and for the first time, they invited me just to be part of their delegation, let's say. And in 2008, first I was in Istanbul and just took part in that panel discussions, just being involved. But at that period, I didn't think that I'm going to apply for this project because I haven't any idea. But during our strolls, city strolls, with one of my friends, who later took part in Galata as an actor. With him, we just go to the top of the Galata Tower and really witnessed the situation when a very attractive young woman was lying in the balcony, open air balcony, and everybody climbs up to the Galata just to see the fantastic city views, and suddenly someone is lying there and she's really attractive. And this story, this little story happened to us, and it very attracts me because it was very funny, because you are paying money, you're going up just to see the Istanbul, but instead you see the wonderful, beautiful woman. So so this happened to me, and when they said that they are making this co-production film between Armenia and Turkey. So I just applied with this idea, just a little bit worked on this idea and just applied. And we were there, we had pitchings, etc., etc. We won. Even at that point, the budget of the Galata was very low. It was kind of 15,000 euros. Okay. So even at that time, I didn't get any payment, I should say. But by the way, it was very nice way to collaborate, and we had several films here in Armenia, several filmmakers who took part in these projects. I should say that this kind of projects are very important, not only with Turkey, but it's a kind of alternative way to find some money to make a film, because you don't have, especially for short films, other countries are not interested to put money in short films. They are interested to make big films, just to have box offices or etc., etc. Why other country or why USA should put some money in my film? Because it isn't, let's say, you can't earn money. It's just for fun, let's say. It helps me to be more professional, to check out some ideas, like with these lenses when I mentioned. So it's your ideas, you are improving your professional skills, but for that your country should be interested in this kind of situations. And I always wanted to have a fund which will support short films, be alternative when someone rejects you, let's say state funding. So you have another choice, just go to them and pitch or tell your story, and maybe you have another. But in this way, you only have one source. This is nonsense.
That's really difficult. I can imagine. I can imagine. It's difficult for everyone to be creative and be supportive in the art that they're doing. If there are, I don't think there are any more questions, and but I must say that I've very much enjoyed your films, and I hope that something new will come up soon, and and that we can view, but obviously, understandable that also, of course, the situation in Armenia, I'm sure at this point, like everywhere else, is even more difficult to do any kind of creative work, and especially working in the public space. But it's been such a great pleasure to meet you, and such a great pleasure to share in your art and share a little bit of your personal life, and so yeah, thank you, Diana, and I hope that we'll be in touch.